Yeah. Sorry. Oh my God. So hello everyone, welcome to the pre-summit of Methodist College Debating Championship 2017. So I'm the chair for this debate. My name is Daniel. Paneling with me is Gary, Mitchun, Sarah, and Eva. Right? So on opening government, we have WSCKA. Opposition, we have Nyatu Lidi. Emerging government, we have PPKA. And opposing opposition, Gelebu A. On the motion that this House will make Development Aid conditional on countries involving fossil fuels, now I'd like to invite the Prime Minister to dedicate the science for the remind me how to lower the devices when the things are
the lives of people in developing countries and countries which require development aid is important. But we also need to recognize that the environment is something which affects every individual on this planet, and we think that is a much bigger issue we need to tackle. Two arguments in my speech. Firstly, why this tactic is principally justified, and secondly, how this leads to a much better environment and better conditions for these individuals. Before that, what is the stance coming from opening government? We want a more wholesome development for these nations. What do we mean by this? We think it's not only about making the most amount of money, but it's also about making sure that the condition of your country is one which can support the life of people on the ground. So what's the point of you having a lot of money and being able to develop into a nation, developed nation, but have a horrible environment for your people? I do not think that is a worthy trade-off. We think the environment is something which needs to be saved, and that is one, and working towards that is one of the aims of opening government. Our policy is simple and comes in two folds. Firstly, no thank you. The aid which we are talking about comes from the West. We do not care whether it's bilateral or unilateral. We think it includes both of this, and we think this is important considering most countries which are working to develop are usually the countries which pollute the most. What do we mean by this? Meaning having factories and emitting huge amounts of carbon dioxide to the air and making the quality of air and the environment much worse. We think the longer you not do anything and continue allowing these countries to further pursue these actions, we think that's where you put the environment at a severe disadvantage in the long run. Secondly, how do we judge it? We judge by your economic status as your country, and therefore the funds which you do have in order for you to carry out the leapfrogging of the fossil fuels. What does this leapfrogging mean? So this means the better the efforts of a country to remove current fossil fuel-based generators or industries such as coal mines and these coal factories, we think it's much better, and we will give you more aid if you can take down more of these factories. First argument, why it's principally justified. So let's understand what it means when you do not leapfrog at all. We think at that point in time you are complicit to all environmental harms that occur. And we have to recognize that environmental harms not only affect people within your nation, but other nations as well. So we think this is harmful. Okay, let's talk about these two contexts. First, let's take a look at your own nation. The fact that your people working in these coal mines have to suffer health risks when people, if you have a bad environment with extremely high pH value, people suffer skin diseases, people face troubles breathing, and we think this is horrible conditions for these individuals. If your end goal of getting aid is to truly help people, we think this is the best form of help you can give to the people on the ground. Every time you use coal and use electricity within these nations where it's generated by fossil fuels, we think you're complicit to all these health risks which you give to your own people. But what about other nations? These are other nations which benefit nothing from your development, from your progress as a developing country. So we think when you release methane to the air, for example, and the ozone layer thins and the temperature increases, and countries like the Bora Islands sink even more day by day, I think these are situations where these countries never consented into your development whatsoever. However, they are the ones who face the brunt of the force. Second principle justification. We think it is time sensitive. The fact that the environment is something which needs to be fought for immediately when scientists recognize it's an Anthropocene coming up, the fact that it's an age of extinction for people, and the fact that it's irreversible. So the point in which the environment gets so bad, we think that's what these steps in order to overcome this problem gets even more expensive as well. So if you are trying to say that we can eventually get green technology, it's going to take you more green technology in order to solve the mass amounts of destruction you achieve as well. Second argument, and this is more on the outcome, how we lead to a much better environment at the end of the day. First level, why is developmental aid strategic in tackling this problem? So let's take a look at how much water developmental aid actually holds. We think in status quo, governments use it to placate the people, and this then leads to them trying to garner support from the people. What does this mean? Because we think developmental aid is very important in the lives of people on the ground. The fact that it plays a huge role in the amount of welfare that you get and the quality of education they have. We think that the fact that it has a direct link to the needs of the people, i.e. the supplies of the nation, we think people hold it very important. But before I proceed,
do you agree that polluting the environment is the easiest way to achieve development faster?
Okay, so maybe making more money is easy if you're just destroying the environment, but that doesn't make it correct or justified in any way. I already proved to you why it's a huge problem that we need to tackle, and it's not like under our side we're neglecting them all together. So let's understand, right? Second level, why would states react under our side? Two reasons. Firstly, we think in order for them to get re-elected, they're more likely to cater to the needs of the people. What do we mean by this? Meaning, in order for me to be able to provide to people on the ground through this developmental aid, means I need to leapfrog on some level and remove these fossil fuels. And we think when you can provide that life, that's where you can relate to the average voter on the ground, and that's where these states are more incentivized to cater to them. But secondly, we think states naturally have an incentive to cater to its people. The fact that your federal funds goes towards your healthcare, for example. But if states do not react under our side, in the worst case scenario, we think people are more likely to pressure these states because it's so important and it affects their life within this way. They're going to pressure states who just don't care about the developmental aid. Third level, why won't they change in status quo? And this is very important. Because in status quo, there's no pressure for these states whatsoever. They can always placate people with the aid that they are getting. They will say that we are already giving you your needs. There's no need for you to pressure us. We think also the current rhetoric which the opposition have that it's fine if it's for development means there's no counter-narrative to this problem. We need to understand that development is important. But let's not remain silent when people are suffering.
Thank you, Prime Minister, for the speech. Now, we invite the opposition
Fun fact, Norway has the most robust electrical infrastructure of any nation on this planet. They buy more electric cars than any other country. They have more chargers and they have the best national electrical grid. They also happen to be the largest exporter of petroleum in that area. They also happen to be the largest ones who profit from selling the worst kind of energy possible to the countries that most need it the most. Believe that your moral, so-called moral high ground of wanting to save the planet is nonsense. Because the countries that actually give developmental aid to these poor nations are A, countries who came in and raped your women, pillaged your villages and took your natural resources in the first place. But secondly, are also the countries that benefited the most from polluting the world, that benefited most from throwing as much methane and carbon dioxide into the air as they possibly could, and now have the audacity to call themselves developed nations, wonderful people who want to make the world a better place. We will prove to you on a principle level as to why it's completely unjustified to take away and put such a atrocious condition on developmental aid. Secondly, I'll show you what is actually going to be the practical outcomes of that policy and why it's going to be a worse world. And thirdly, I'll point out to you what these developing nations are actually going to lose out at the end of the day and why it's so important that they don't lose out on these certain benefits. Number one, principle justifications. We believe that countries that provide aid have already enjoyed as much as they can from destroying the world, right? These are countries like America, Britain, the UK, the West that they characterize wonderfully. These are nations that have benefited enough from taking away like metals from Southeast Asia, taking away natural resources from developing countries, resources that is imperative for a country to use to develop in the first place. But more than that, we also believe that these are countries where like the nations that receive developmental aid are countries that a good portion of their economy actually actively involves using fossil fuels, i.e. countries in Africa which depend a lot on fossil fuels to run the machines needed to excavate the metals that they use to sell out and then gain profits. Countries like in Asia where they need to use as much petroleum as possible to access resources in the sea that they need to use to also sell out and gain profits. These are countries that heavily depend on petroleum because it just so happens that A, that country is rich in resources that unfortunately given technology can only be extracted using petroleum and fossil fuels, but secondly are the best avenues possible to benefit from these resources. Second, next, we believe that countries that impose these conditions are directly complicit partners in the wonderful effort to pollute this country, i.e. your Western countries also buy petroleum from these nations, they will use it wonderfully, and not to mention your developed countries can freely use petroleum as much as they want because there's no condition on them to stop them from using petroleum, right? They will continue reaping the benefits, like America and the UK will continue reaping the benefits from using fossil fuels. It is an unfair condition that you're putting on these poor countries because the ones that actually control the cash flow of the developmental aid are going to be the countries that can benefit the most from using petroleum, right? You impose an unfair condition upon countries that need to use fossil fuels the most. But remember, we don't expect like South Sudan to start buying Teslas and become a developed nation, right? We understand where they're coming from. But the point of the matter is that for any country to leapfrog such a source of energy that history has proven to be the one element that a country needs to develop is absolutely unfair and it's not going to be a practical, which is a great segue into my second argument as to the practical outcomes of that policy and why it's going to be terrible. Yeah.
Considering these nations heavily rely on fossil fuels and everyone tells them that it's completely fine for you to do so, when will the incentive to suddenly change happen?
I don't know, when you actually let them use fossil fuels and then reach a developed level where they can actually start introducing infrastructure that is not as polluting, we think like, yeah, if we continue polluting the world, we are willing to trade that off, ladies and gentlemen. We are willing to take the risk because the alternative is much worse. So here's the alternative, the practical outcomes of that policy. So let's look at it on a pragmatic level. Let's all be economists. How many countries can really afford the risk and the trade-off that comes with this type of developmental aid? Your developmental aid, number one, won't be much because your rich petrol-guzzling countries, your countries that can also sell petrol to other nations, lose out on a large market because you're telling this market that you can't buy petrol from them anymore. So they don't have that much money to fund into developmental aid in the first place. So your developmental aid is already less in amount. But secondly, the countries that can actually afford to do this are not even countries that are developing, right? Your developing countries cannot afford to lose out on using petroleum. More often than not, countries, we believe, will opt out of receiving your developmental aid. They will opt out of it because they recognize the necessity to use petroleum to continue, because they're in no position to be there's no gun on the head to receive this developmental aid, right? But rather it's an option, but a dire option that they need. But we believe that on comparative, the countries will be more likely to say that it's fine, we don't want your money because we actually need this very important resource to develop our country, to actually have the ability to feed the people in our nation. So what does this mean? What happens is that countries that had to depend on developmental aid will now use the cheapest forms of energy possible because they don't benefit from developmental aid, that policies do not have that condition imposed. So in status quo, seeing as there's no condition imposed, countries that are developing can use developmental aid to buy petroleum, to use petroleum as effectively as they possibly could. But when the developmental aid now they cannot take because they recognize the importance of petroleum, they have less money to spend. No, thank you. They have less money to spend, which means they're going to resort to the only alternative that these poor nations have, which is other less effective forms of resources. This means leaded petroleum or cheaper petroleum that is not as effective, like the lower ones that you get from your science, like your science furnace, right? Like those type of lower quality petroleums, they'll be more likely to continue burning coal. Also, they'll be more likely to use the resources that they are naturally abundant in their nations, wood, trees, to continue burning fire that they need to run their industries. This is the type of world that we live in because they need to resort to the cheapest, most polluting forms of energy possible. But what does that policy also result in? This resulting in them losing out on some of the most important things that are important to a developing nation: infrastructure, expertise, advice. These are the things that actually make changes in the country, not necessarily tons of money. Because we need to recognize what kind of developmental aid is also given to these poor nations. It is like for example, farmers from Brazil that go to China and help China in their plantations to feed the people there and to grow better crops. These are the type of expertise that is necessary to exist in these nations. When you make developmental aid conditional on a condition that these countries simply cannot meet, you also lose out on non-monetary benefits that countries love to capitalize on to be able to become developed in the first place. We believe that their policy is completely not practical. It is extremely harmful and it's just simply not right.
Thank you, Lord. Please share now in my
The tragedies of yesterday cannot justify the horrors of today. I think that the biggest problem with the side of opening opposition was that they assumed that because of the things countries did a while back, this is enough incentive for us to place innocent individuals that had no part to play in your rape, no part to play in your pillaging. You make them victim to circumstances they do not benefit of, victim to circumstances they could never consent to. That being said, I will do three things in my speech. Firstly, I will prove to you why developing countries are better off in our world because that was their only benefit. Even if you don't believe me on that, I will prove to you why the environment is better safeguarded in our world and why this is a more important thing to care about. Thirdly, even if you don't buy that, I will prove to you why in principle we need to ensure that we are not complicit in the harms to the environment. Firstly, where developing countries are better served. Notice that their only analysis to this was telling you that oftentimes this is the cheapest avenue for us to do it. But we had a number of responses in terms of preemption from our first speaker. One, we told you that development is not important insofar as the quality of life around that development is not important, or you force them in a cycle. How does this look like? This means even if a child can go to school, he or she has to go to school with smoke everywhere, breathing in fumes that will kill him straight away, having to drink water that is polluted and shortening your lifespan by 20 years. That means your development is illegitimate and useless. Secondly, I think you place that development, that country in a worse off state. You force them to leech off the government, or you force them to use these public goods and put these countries in worse off positions. In a world where more harm by the environment, more people take money from the healthcare, more people make it harder for developing countries to develop in the world of opposition, when they create a self-perpetuating cycle that doesn't allow developing countries to opt out. That being said, my argument, why developing countries are better off. Notice that the characterization here is simple. Oftentimes, developing countries view things in a very short-term manner, because governments only have an incentive to get re-elected after 4 years. They couldn't care less what happens after. What does this mean? Two things. One, they view things in an extremely linear manner. That means you only need to help the people now, and after that, it is no longer my responsibility. I have no incentive to do things to cater to the future generation. Secondly, they often don't understand the consequences of their actions. Therefore, they have an incentive to pollute more and more. What is the outcome of this? Notice that if this is true, that we live in a better quality of life, because development is pointless if you live every day breathing in fumes that will kill you. So we force developmental countries to think long term and safeguard people's lives in the long run, because we force them to not think about short-term gratification. We make that choice for them insofar as they harm individuals later on in life, because they have no incentive to care for them. So they don't die later. So innocent children that are born in these developing countries are placed in predicaments that they do not necessarily consent to. It's worse in a world where you place them in this situation where they are forced to resort to worse things. Have you seen? So on a net, we think that better development in our. That being said, where is life better for people? First thing, I think the biggest thing, one of the criticisms they had was, what if they say no? Okay, so this debate has to be comparative. In your world, they will definitely say no, because you don't give them the opportunity to do anything otherwise. But then there's this weird contention that they will use more cheap energy in our world. And I don't really get the link, because they definitely use cheap energy in a world where they have no incentive to change, where we have no leverage over them to tell them, hey, you have to change. That means there will always be the worst case scenario on the side of the coin. What's the difference on the ground? It's true that some of them won't change full scale, they may not do as much as we wanted to. But the difference is, if they change a little, we give them a little developmental aid. That's a win on the side of government. We are okay with that. Even if it means development being lost, if we can tear down that one post station, is more important. But here's where our link is distinction. Why is it the environment is more important to care about than this development? One, it harms more people. So that means all the things you do extends beyond the borders of your country. You harm innocent people in Bora Bora, you harm innocent people in Maldives when their islands sink because the ice caps melt and they had no part to play in that, or they couldn't consent into those situations. So on a balance of utility, I think more people are harmed in the world of opposition. Secondly, I think more people are worse harmed in opposition. Why? Because the biggest harm on God is maybe they receive subpar healthcare, maybe they receive subpar education. In your world, they definitively died, but they were less when they were more innocent to begin with. You force people in situations where they couldn't consent into. You force individuals to die, and I think that's far worse. But secondly, they also told you that we could do things later. What's the problem with this? One, we already told you that these things are often really time sensitive and irreversible. That means even after you develop, opposition cannot tell you that they will also get the environment and they will also get development, because it's time sensitive and irreversible. We have reached the point where we are about to pass, where it enters an age of extinction. It enters a point where we are unable to turn back from the horrible things we have done, and even if we have more capital, even if we have more ability to change, we cannot change that. Change is meaningless. We cannot fear that. Secondly, I don't understand, even if we could do anything, how we could persuade them when they are developed, because we have no leverage over them anymore. This is the best time to act because we have some leverage over them, right? But so the worst case, the worst case is the whole country doesn't have healthcare. At the very least, we harm innocent people that didn't consent to this development. Secondly, this principle thing. One, colonization. So one, I think this is a really tiny principle in the sense that not everyone was colonized, and it doesn't apply to every single developing country out there. That principle is really. But secondly, more important, I think countries cannot be defined by the actions of the past. Why? A country's identity is based on the people that live there now. And insofar as those people didn't consent or didn't advocate for this raping, this pillaging, or this colonization, you cannot hold them liable for it and force them to be in predicaments they wouldn't otherwise have been in. You cannot use that as justification. But secondly, just in principle, I think just because developed countries did something wrong, that doesn't mean we should allow developing countries to do even worse or do even worse things. Like in principle, they need to justify to us why it sounds weird, but why two wrongs make a right. I think that was the justification we needed to hear. But secondly, what is this overarching principle that should be a system? Complicity. Because notice that the decision that you make is legitimate insofar as it affects you only and it doesn't create harms to other individuals. But at the point in which your decisions affect everyone, I think we should have some ability, even if it's not morally great that we're using leverage as ransom, we need to step in because this decision is no longer yours. This decision is the whole planet's, and we will do everything in our power to ensure you make this correct decision.
To be complicit in opposition's world is to be desperate in ours. We think that these individuals who had to actively pollute the environment never had an alternative and never had the choice or privilege that a lot of other Western countries did within these instances, right? I'll do a few things in my speech. First, I'll be separating my speech into a few issues. First, let's talk about which side helps develop these underdeveloped or third world countries. Secondly, let's talk about how this will lead to a better environment in their world, how that is something that we're willing to trade off. And thirdly, why is this unjustified? Why is it unjustified to give conditional aid towards individuals within this aid, especially with wanting leapfrogging for fossil fuels, right? First, let's talk about the first issue on how developing countries are better helped in our world. So this is the alternative that they have upon pulling out a few harms, right? Firstly, petroleum is one of the main sources of electricity, of resource towards these really extremely poor countries, right? So that means that petroleum doesn't only funnel that in that aspect, right? They give individuals jobs. So foreign direct investments in MNCs will oftentimes move away from countries that want to, because they want to gain profit, right? No, thank you. We think that states usually can tax a lot of foreign FDIs or MNCs that come in to gain revenue in order to help these countries within those instances. So sure, we are unable to combat the environmental problems that exist, but it makes it a lot harder for development to exist if you take away petroleum as one of those fossil fuels, as one of the main resources towards these individuals. You starve individuals from receiving basic human rights, from having the right to put food on the table, because these individuals end up dying anyway, because they are unable to develop in those instances. Sure, the environment will extremely be damaged, but that is one trade-off that we're willing to make at the expense of individuals who never had a choice and who never had an alternative within these instances, right? You never give development use to leapfrog when developmental aid is something that these individuals need the most, especially considering the fact that they made a concession that these are the individuals who are mostly harmed within these instances. Secondly, we think that no, thank you. How will this lead to a better environment in our world, right? Because they said that they are unwilling to wait, or that they think that it's an extremely time-sensitive issue. But we think that protecting the environment happens a lot better when you become a more developed country. Why? Firstly, because it's already proven that prominent members of developed nations are more often than not more accountable in these instances and can be punished a lot easier, right? Secondly, without developmental aid, or without developmental aid and without being more developed, India couldn't even have the money to even start eco-friendly policies within their country, right? So, the kind of policies and the kind of outcomes that you want, it can still happen under our side, even if it's a lot longer. No, thank you. But when you achieve a state of development, that is when you have more stringent laws from the international community to safeguard your particular environment. We think that doesn't happen in your world because these individuals are more often than not can be forgiven within these instances, and we think that we shouldn't ever neglect this in this instance, right? We think that the severe lack of development in these countries can never be able to improve at the point in which that you limit them from receiving developmental aid. Because the thing is that developmental aid is extremely limited under their side of the house and is conditional. So these individuals who never receive developmental aid, if they want to opt out, can never achieve that state in their world, right? Before I move on,
your coal and fossil fuels will eventually be depleted. If jobs are your contention, we create sustainable jobs with solar that will last you for longer.
yeah, but the thing is that it takes a lot, like the development that you give in order to sustain green technology in the first place is severely limited. The skill sets and the workers that you need in order to maintain green technology is a lot more difficult in your world, right? You think that it's not enough for you to sustain or to get faster development in these instances, considering the fact that you say that the environment is a time-sensitive thing. But second issue, why is it horrible that developmental aid is conditional towards developing countries? Firstly, because it hinders the sort of economic growth you potentially have for your country. Because sure, your developmental aid can give these countries a lot of money, but to sustain that green technology is difficult. It's like a lot more slower. It's not fast enough to expand green technology to resources to maintain that green technology, right? So how will this affect that? Number one, you cannot actively pollute the environment, meaning that you opt out of the fastest way of gaining revenue. So like the easiest way for you to gain revenue within Pakistan and India is to pollute the environment by like mining or coal, which is the fastest way to gain electricity in India, right? These individuals opt into hard labor, more labor towards these individuals, and it's a lot easier for them to gain that form of development. It doesn't happen in your world, right? But why is this exceptionally important? Because the principle that came under Irfan is the fact that a lot of countries that are more developed get away with polluting the environment, and then they make it conditional on other countries that pollute the environment. This is important to know because these countries never play a part in saving the environment, and they just play a good face, right? It's a facade. For example, during the COP21 in 2014, America pulled out from wanting to not pollute the environment, right? So that just proves that these countries, Western countries, only play a face or play a facade towards trying to protect the environment, never giving an outcome, and only forcing a lot of these other smaller countries in order to develop within those instances. No thanks. We think that when you reach a point of development, that's when you can allow your country to be a lot better in these instances. Because development, and this is conceded by both sides of the house, requires some form of harm towards the environment, right? The difference is that all of these other countries already have the resources and are privileged enough to pollute the environment. That's why the UK and France are exceptionally great in trying to make their nation a lot more developed because of the fact that they have more resources, or because of the fact that they have the ability to make their country develop in the first place. These countries like India and Pakistan never had that particular opportunity because they were always severely limited and put in a position where they had to pollute the environment in those instances. We agree that sure, there will definitely be third-party harm towards other countries because of the fact that they will be affected by the environment. Yes, the effect is irreversible, but at the point in which that you become developed, that's when you can be held more accountable in the international community. That's when you have the opportunity to be a better country and to develop your nation and to help your environment as a whole.
Ladies and gentlemen, let's look at where has the debate gone so far from the side of opening. We're talking about some principal justifications of why you shouldn't leapfrog, why you should, and the harm of the environment, and how the benefits from the economy populating from third world country enjoying this kind of development is better than the environment. But from this point forward, CG is going to bring you and lead it from opening by talking about how best we include third world countries into the end goal towards saving the environment. More importantly, we talk about the responsibility of countries giving this in order for to force individuals to change, as
well as outcomes of this aid to the recipients and how it grows their economy in the future. But more importantly, this is the better debate to talk about than just talking about the principles, but we look at the outcomes in the end of the day. From this case, let's just tackle a few things from the side of open opposition. They talked about something from a myopic scope. They only were willing to focus on countries who were able to use fossil fuels as well as generate and use good technology in order to combat this kind of negative externalities. But the kind of things and the kind of countries who receive it in the first place are countries who are unable to do so in the first place. They don't have the necessary technologies in order for them to combat the kind of negative externalities that actually come with the problem of developing their own country. That's the real problem. But more importantly, when talking about the economy, we talked about how this is a form of a gradual process. So we won't kill off any country that's trying to use fossil fuels in order for them to export. Using fossil fuel itself on a daily basis is very different than actually exporting the kind of fossil fuels towards the world. But more importantly, we say that the better issue, if you want to look in the long term, would be more beneficial when this development aid comes with a condition to helping the environment. I'll show you further with my argumentation, but we have to make this clear from the start. Sit down. Let's end the root cause of pollution to begin with. Tell you that the environmental issue, we can all agree, is worth combating. But the problem is, it's worse in industrialized zones which are using fossil fuels. We tell you the problem of oversaturation, disease spreading, chemical waste that ruin crops and shorten lifespans and destroys the sea and all these kind of areas are mostly affected on our African countries or Eastern European countries like Sierra Leone. In these ideas, the impacts of these problems comes in two folds. One, the risk of these individuals facing the problem in a developed area is less likely to be a problem. That's why US can combat this kind of ideas of environmental problems, because they have the necessary technology and education, and people are willing to change because the people are more educated and they're moving towards that idea. But unfortunately, within an exclusive nation characterized by a recipient who's receiving the aid, they're not able to do so because what they do and what they capitalize on is a form of industry which want to grow and further exacerbate the problem. So in this case, what we're talking about, the problem is worse because developed nations are trying to combat the problem of pollution, but at the same time, the people who are polluting are third world countries who can't do anything else except try to pollute because they don't have the incentives to do so, and they don't have the technology and the ideas to do so in the first place. That's the root cause of the problem. So our trade-off is, as long as this kind of environmental problems can actually bring benefits and actually progresses in the future, we're okay with the kind of trade-off that can actually harm these individuals in the short term. Because what's it down? Development aid in opposition only worsens the problem that creates a third world country. At best, what you do is create a factory that only kills the individuals inside because they are using and breathing the pollution that's actually harming them. The trade-off here is you're only making a false sense of safety with a development aid that actually happens. Because as a developed nation, you already know the outcome of actually this development aid. If they use it and base it on fossil fuels, you know that people will die, you know that situation and pollution will become worse, but yet you give it to kind of third world countries. In this case, what you're doing is you're coming an accomplice towards third world problem and the problem of global pollution in the first place. But let's talk about the responsibility of developed nations. We tell you they have been benefiting from fossil fuels. Yes, that's exactly why they are the ones who should be making these things conditional aid to begin with. It's because they have actually, in the past years, like in 50 years ago in the Industrial Revolution, when this happens, they don't have the kind of awareness. But we have the awareness now, which is why developed nations should change and make it more conditional to begin with. This is their way in retributing towards the world because this is a better option than waiting for a country to become a developing country and waiting for them to become a developed country, where that's their alternative in order to solve the world pollution problem in the first place. We don't know when that will happen, but more importantly, we know that giving no condition towards this problem only worsens the problems, and there's no point developing a world for fighting pollution if you're not, but in the status quo, you're only making the problem worse. Yes.
Your developed nations have come out with a blueprint that they've shown the world, showing that petroleum is a necessary stepping stone towards development. What happens in your world when your developing nations fail to develop?
The idea is they are able to receive this kind of idea, but there's no incentive from your side to actually bring this kind of material in order for them to actually use it in order for them to actually generate the economy based on a more environmental friendly way. There's no reason for them to do so. That's why conditional aid is not the way for them to force in these kind of countries to actually leapfrog and try to change their ways. However, the outcomes to these recipients, in terms of economy, right? Leapfrogging is an attraction for investors and an attraction for countries in the first place. Because if you're US, right, and you're giving a country a conditional aid and you're asking them to leapfrog, it's more likely that investors in your country who are environmental friendly, who are companies who do and release this kind of technology, they are willing to go to this kind of countries and help them in the first place. NGOs, people who are willing and enough, looking at the changes that a third world country can make, improving their working conditions, improving their lives, and improving their environment, living conditions, are more likely to become a place for an attraction for individuals to come and actually invest money in the first place. But this does not happen in a world and you're under your side because countries are too ignorant in order for them to change in the first place. But more importantly, how is this outcome better than theirs? Because in the first place, we tell you we actually inclusively include people who are in the third world country, third world nations, and they cannot actually involve themselves inside the cause of actually solving pollution to begin with. In this best sense, this kind of ability for them to attract investors is the best way for them to not only get the development in that they want, but also make sure that there is a progress and as long as sustainable chain of individuals trying to help them in the future. That's the best case. But in overall, if we're trying to evaluate the issue of how best we include so many people into the cause of solving pollution, we only do that in CG because we talked about the idea of how best to include individuals in the third world country when we think of condition to begin with.
Good. If you know about it, now you have the conversation.
Okay, before I start my speech, I just want to introduce my cousin, my partner, Adik. He has never debated before. This is his first tournament, and without him, I wouldn't be standing here. Alright. I'm very scared. For a debate that's revolving around developmental aid, I don't hear a lot of discussion about developmental aid. We'll be the first team to do that. Now first, a few responses. OG first. So they refuse to tell us A, where this money comes from, which is a problem, and B, their arguments assume that all the other issues that a developing country faces are just non-issues and shouldn't be funded when the environmental is our priority. I will debunk that. Now they tell us that in their arguments, right, they try to prove to us that more people are harmed when you pollute. Okay, great. So let's starve the states that can't afford this technology, and if they could suffer from a plethora of other issues that will tear down the ability for the state to function in the effort for us to save the environment. Now I'll talk about how we can still save the environment later on without this model, right? Now the principle coming up from our side is very, very simple, right? It's very similar to tax, right? Richer people who are capable pay more and do more efforts to help the people and help the poorer people, but those who are too poor don't pay tax even though they are harmed when poorer people do not pay tax because tax benefits all. Let's talk about CG then. So CG wanted to include these developing nations into a green policy, but told us all the reasons why they cannot. They are poor, they have no technology. Like, what the hell is going to happen to these people? How you want to leapfrog? I also don't know, right? So like, I will tell you in my speech why A, it is bad for these people and this policy will harm them, and B, why in the future green nations can still exist anyway, right? So let's talk about number one. When and why is developmental aid given out? So we will tell you coming from CEO that it is given to poorer nations that have problems sustaining and has issues with basic infrastructure and basic human sustenance. We tell you that we're talking about nations that suffer and find it hard to ensure that their kids are able to eat. What more read? We would argue with you that understanding the prerequisite for getting money, right, is to spend money. We don't understand how this works. They want these nations to invest in green technology, which is expensive, by the way, and we don't think that the prerequisite to getting money is spending money. Where does money come from? Well, we can buy green technology today. We don't need developmental aid. I don't understand the mechanics of that. But more than that, it should be instead the prerequisite to a developmental aid is a guarantee to ensure that you alleviate the basic human condition of your civilians. And this is important for us to know because there's a plethora of issues that these people face which is unrelated to the environment but much more urgent to the people on the ground. Secondly, while the model, right, from government side is harmful to developing nations, And this will be 4 prongs. 1, how it is impossible for them to pull it off. B, 2, whatever, misprioritization of money. 3, which departments in that nation will suffer and why it's bad. And 4, is change possible under opposition? Is there incentives for them to make a difference in the future? But before I get to that, any viewers?
Yeah. So our policy.
Come on, at best, when countries can actually receive the aid at the same time leapfrog and they can actually include themselves within this idea of helping the environment, why is that so harmful?
Okay, I understand the principle and all that help the environment. Okay, so let's go into number 1. Why is it impossible for these people to pull off if it's a prerequisite for developmental aid? So, firstly, I don't think anyone usually listening or maybe I just wasn't listening, but this green technology is expensive. That's why these nations resort to other like petroleum, coal, and all those things because it's cheaper and it's the only thing that they can sustain, right? So they have no money to use because aid is an after benefit you all need from aid, right? So on our side, we give aid when and why it is actually needed for when these people are incapable of sustaining the basic human condition, right? Now, that is simply the reason why it is impossible for them to do that because they don't have the money yet, right? And then they want to spend money. I don't know how that works, but B, the misprioritization of money. And this applies to at best if the aid is given to leapfrog, right? We still say and we argue too that it is a misplacement of cash and it's a misprioritization of what is important to these people. No, thank you. So they assume that the debate happens in central KL or in the middle of Cape Town or things like that. When the debate actually happens, when people's quality of life is at stake, and what kind of quality of life are we talking about? We're talking about people who don't even have electricity and don't have enough opportunities to access coal-funded electricity. What more solar panel, wind turbine, what. I also don't know how that works or what the mechanics of this system is, right? It is impossible for us to argue that all of the people will benefit when not all of the people have access to education, people are suffering from famine, people do not have access to electricity, and if they do, it's only for a limited amount of hours. What kind of ridiculous policy is this when developmental aid is given to countries which decide to fund money away from these groups and decide to fund the individuals that can only benefit from this like green technology, other people in the richer communities within these nations? No, thank you, sit down. So we tell you that the misprioritization of this money and this money, the misprioritization is very, very bad. So number 3, which departments will suffer and why is that bad? So we will argue with you that the money is taken away from things like the basic infrastructure of the nation. So we're talking about access to clean water, we're talking about access to education, we're talking about access to sustainable living, right? Infrastructure like roads and access to electricity, all of which are potential enablers to empower green technology in 2 ways. Number 1, when you have this kind of infrastructures, when you have people having access to technology, having access to education, this is when the green technology will be more efficient because it can benefit more people, right? Because they don't like become users of like bad technology and all that stuff, right? Bad, whatever you want to say, you all know what it is. First thing, right now, the green tech will only be in richer areas as I've explained earlier, right? So the benefit that they want to like give out isn't that big if the pollution that they are currently causing is not that big when the basic things that we need to get out of the way, like infrastructure, like roads and schools, are not that there, right? Now, number 4, is change possible and is there actually an incentive for something to happen in the future? So, we understand right now that these people are not in a position to invest in green technology and need to invest in things which alleviate the basic human condition. So once you're in a position to change with non-vital repercussions as you alienate money from these vital structures, most probably in the future, states that are in the position, who are developed and all that stuff, right, have a larger incentive to sanction states who are in the position to make a change, but rather decide not to. We can see very clearly that in status quo there's a plethora of reasons why states sanction as well, right? Just like how, for example, the Saudi sanction or Qatar for ISIS because they would have not funded ISIS but decided to do so in the eyes of the Arabs anyway, right? So we tell you that in these kinds of situations where environment is now becoming more and more of an issue, when states are in a position to do something about it and no longer have to suffer or prioritize things like basic human sustenance, only then other states have a position to apply sanctions or apply incentives for these states to pick up because they are now in a position to pay tax. Just like if you have a certain income, you start paying tax. It's all the same, guys. Don't make poor people pay tax. Don't be CEO.
The benefits of renewable technology, advanced environmental methods like solar panels and like renewable energy is something that we are currently still grasping in our world. There's a certain level of ignorance and just stubbornness from the closing opposition when they are trying to tell us that renewable energy does not solve all these problems. So what they are trying to say that yes, we understand that these third world countries have problems such as disease, they have problems such as, and he mentioned exactly, quality of their water and problems with chemical waste and lack of food and things like this. But they don't realize that leapfrogging is something that does help these problems. They have to understand that leapfrogging to advanced environmental measures such as solar panels solves problems like the quality of the water because there's no chemical waste in it and because there's less pollution. Why? Because we are using renewable energy sources instead of using fossil fuels. These harms that, no thank you, sit down, these harms that they are identifying are harms that we know 100% for sure were a result of using these fossil fuels, and we have no evidence to suggest that using these renewable energy sources will produce the same harms. In fact, we have evidence to suggest that these renewable energies will in fact help and alleviate these harms that they are talking about. So next, we'll be going into something that's come up most in opposition side. So they've also come up and argued that developed countries are the ones that have been responsible for these developing countries being in this poor position. So they said that they'd come and terrorize these third world countries, raped and pillaged these people, and developed countries are the ones that have benefited the most. Now the opening has told you that you can't hold the current generation accountable. But what we'll tell you more is that, firstly, where does this end? When can these developed countries stop paying for the 1,000-year wrongs that their ancestors did, and when can we as a world forget all these things that have happened and focus on solving our problems right now, which is what we are trying to do when we're leapfrogging. We are developed, as these developed nations, we are accepting, no thanks, that we are responsible for what has happened. We are responsible for the pollution that currently happens. And as my first speaker said, his response is that because we are responsible and because we've gone through this, it has to come from us because we have this greater knowledge of that the pollution that we cause can be solved by this. It's because of this that we as developed nations are the ones to act. And leapfrogging, using financial aid is the way to do this. No thanks. So they've also said that developed countries have benefited the most, and that's the reason why. There's a certain level of hypocrisy. But they fail to understand that pollution and damaging the environment doesn't just affect the government in these developed countries. Just because these developed countries are reaping the benefits of fossil fuel, just because the governments have decided to do this, no thanks. Just because the government has decided to do this, doesn't mean that you can sacrifice everyone else in the rest of the world who suffers because of the damaged environment. Doesn't mean you can punish the people in this country, and as my first speaker said, doesn't mean you can punish the people in these third world countries as well. No thank you. So secondly, is that we can even take the hardline stance. We say that even if these developed countries are responsible for putting these developing countries in the position, too bad. That's how history has turned out. And now they can say that what if it was the other way around and instead it was just countries like US and UK who fell back, who rode the Industrial Revolution, no thank you, and came out successful. We say that there are too many factors within history, too many things that happen, war, politics, famine, all these things that have happened, that you can't attribute it just to this and hold them to blame. Yes, you are.
So you talk about awareness, right, and how these states do not have the awareness, but now they do. But you do not acknowledge the ability for these states to do so. Why is it okay to redirect money from education and family?
Okay, so then this is where I'll make my trade-off. Firstly, as we've told you, we believe that investing in these renewable energy sources will solve much of the problems that he's talked about. But secondly, even then, we're willing to take the trade-off that currently, in the short term, we damage and we maybe harm the people living in these third world countries because they can't get food and be able to eat. But in the long term, what we get is not a systematic and unending and irreversible damage to the environment that they have already conceded to for the generations to come. Under our closing side, we are willing to take this trade-off, and we think that it's better because we don't cause this irreversible harm to the environment. Now, secondly, they've also argued that these fossil fuels are vital. You really need them to develop. Now, they've actually provided no evidence of this. We know, because of history, yes, that fossil fuels are a way to achieve this status. But they've also ignored, firstly, that all these countries that went through this did go through a lot of trouble and did go through a lot of harm, such as pollution, when they were developing with fossil fuels. But they don't acknowledge that there is the potential, and that we know that there is the potential for these new renewable and more advanced energy sources to potentially develop these countries better. Now let me tell you why. Scientifically as well, when research is being conducted and people are using these advanced technologies, there's the definite side effect that because they're researching and developing in such advanced areas, it is more likely for them to make breakthroughs, to make scientific discoveries that can maybe help and make scientific discoveries that are at a more advanced level. So while developing renewable energy sources and using this and leapfrogging, they're likely to leapfrog to other areas where they might help themselves because of the high-tech nature of renewable energy sources. So to end this, we'd just like to say that we are willing to take the trade-off. We're willing to let these let these people in these third world countries potentially die, potentially suffer, because we are able to not only secure themselves in the future because we protect the environment, but we're also able to help everyone else. We don't think that just because that these developed countries, their ancestors did something wrong in the past, that you can hold all the future generations to come accountable. Thank you.
So I think it's interesting to note that the fact that the closing government specifically said that somehow it's all right to let people die. It's all right to let people suffer. Now that's a completely mind-boggling, bizarre statement to have, particularly considering the fact that opening gov specifically started their own speech with the idea that the lives of these people are important. So, if the lives of these people in developing nations, in which we aim to support with the help of this development aid, which supposedly everyone here has ignored for some reason for the most part, if these lives truly are important, then why haven't we addressed the root causes? In fact, it took until the member of opposition to bring up these points, to bring up the fact that there is more to just ensuring that the planet, that the places that these people live in continue to be habitable. Stuff. Where was it? Now, I'd like to respond to opening government when they spoke about how the development and the introduction of these green technologies are going to inherently improve education in developing countries. Now, here's the thing: just as closing opposition mentioned, technology is inherently cognitive. No, thank you. green technology is inherently complicated. You can't just so I don't think you. Look, you're going to need college education. You're going to need far more than that. And in a developing country where education is already at a premium, where people struggle to get education on a tertiary level or even a secondary level, do we really expect these countries to actually maximize the potential of these things? Now then, before that, I'll take you again.
Besides countries cannot afford this kind of items, what other reasons regarding leapfrogging which facilitates the solving the problems you want, which is extremely harmful?
Look, again, CEO mentioned very specifically what is the point of spending more money in order to get money in the first place. Look, essentially, nothing, no thank you. Essentially, money is falling into a black hole, into a abyss of nothingness. Are we looking for net profit? Are we looking for net gain? And I don't mean about financial net profit. I'm talking about developmental net profit. Okay, how is a country supposed to develop if the only thing that happens with that money is it flying into the air and nothing happening? All right. Now then, the DPM very specifically talked about how the actions of the past don't matter. That somehow, because the current developed countries did a lot of bad, that current developed countries polluted the environment many centuries ago, somehow that's okay. Don't worry, they've learned a lesson by imposing more restrictions on current countries who try to develop and get to a level that they aim to be. Where's the logic in that? Really, even the government themselves mentioned the fact that a lot of this pollution comes from industrialized areas. Where do you think the most industrialized countries on this planet are? All right, they're from currently developed countries. Think about China, think about the United States. These countries produce an insane amount of pollution output. No, thank you. All right, if you really want to solve the root of the problem, if you want to set a good example, to developing countries, if you want to help provide that incentive, well, your incentive starts with these big countries, all right, changing their platform. And I would actually like to add on from that. All right, there seems to be this disbelief, this disbelief that developing countries will somehow, no thank you, will somehow never evolve, will somehow never innovate. Look, technology coming from now, so no thank you, from the US, and even China for God's sake, all right? Look, these countries, these private enterprises have shown that there is money to be made in creating green technology, but and in order to get to that point, where do you think, what progress do you think needed to be there, all right? That expertise doesn't just show up out of nowhere, all right? So essentially, what we're saying is, in order to get that basic infrastructure, in order for these developing countries to meet that green ideal of a beautiful planet and Earth, you're going to need these people to have the very foundations of their countries set in place. No, thank you. All right? We're going to need these countries to fully understand what's in it for them. Okay? Look, another thing you mentioned about is price. Green technology now is definitely expensive. And the fact, no, thank you. And the fact that it's expensive is not going to be necessarily helpful to developing nations. Now, we consider the fact that green technology does have far more benefits than fossil fuels in terms of its output onto the environment. But, no, thank you. But, okay, fine.
How does your developed nations and your side save the environment when the country you help is the one that's destroying?
Okay, so essentially, you want a country to develop into a green country. Yeah, sure, for sure. What's the point of not having a country in the first place? If a populace that can survive, no thank you, if a populace that can fully maximize this potential, what's the point of not having those fundamentals there in the first place? Look, we've talked about how developing nations generally struggle to get to that end game. To get to that end game, we're going to need these countries to get more than just, pressure, all right? They're going to need to fully understand what's in it for them. In that sense, the government seems to have forgotten that the aim here is to assist and abet in these nations getting to a place where they can properly achieve their potential. All right, it's easy for developed nations to already say, well, look, you're damaging the environment, and we're not going to have a planet by the time the decade's over. I mean, these people honestly have bigger issues than that. Tell someone on the street in a developing nation with very little in their pocket, with very little to live for, unfortunately, that their issues do not matter because the rest of the planet is angry at them for a little ideological discrepancy. Tell that to them, and it is because of that that we, the opposition, are truly interactive.
Yeah. Hey, you are amazing. Legend. Sorry, aku je loh. Hari ni, I don't know what you're doing. Yeah.
I just didn't see him was really angry. And I was like, you know, calm down. I mean, I was expecting like the more stuff, but it was like, oh, that's your time? Okay.